It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Yay! This week, starring special guest star Miss Erin Jacobson. Yay! The only lawyer I like. Yay! That gets extra applause. And thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. And welcome back to the show.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Always. Love having you here.
Thank you.
As I
Happy
said,
to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As I said in the email, Erin is one of the few, maybe the only. No, I could think of two other attorneys I like, but three if you count my friend Nancy. She's an attorney. Anyway, I really do hear good things about you behind your back from our member.
That's good.
Yeah. Which is not something most attorneys can lay claim to, but many of our members over the years that have met you at the road rally and ended up using you as their attorney. Chuck Henry and I were out to dinner a month ago or so, and he brought up your name.
Chuck.
He's such an awesome guy.
I know,
he really
he's great.
Is. I love him to death. Anyway, for those of you who may not have read, I should say hello. Hello.
Hello.
Let's see who is in the chat room today. We've got Raman Conley, Martin Frog, Sherry Marcus Milano, Lamar Franklin, Am Cool, or A.M. McCool, there we go. Daryl Berman, Lauren DeGiorgi, Mojo Bone, Patrick Adams, Peter Rahill, piano, guitar, voice lessons. What an odd name. Your parents were mean. Marion Laird, Sasha Rose, Weather Eye. Anyway, hello all. Welcome to the show.
Oh, we have someone watching from London, Emma.
Yeah.
Hi, Emma. Hi, everybody.
It's
midnight in London.
Yeah, that's real dedication.
Dedication. Thank you for staying up late.
Absolutely. So, anyway, Erin is a music attorney whose clients include Grammy and Emmy-Award winners, legacy clients and catalogues, songwriters, music publishers, record labels, and independent artists and companies. She's based in Los Angeles, where she handles a wide variety of music agreements and negotiations, in addition to owning and overseeing all operations for Indie Artist Resource, the independent musician's resource for legal and business protection. Do you want to tell them what Indie Artist Resource is? Give them like a quick overview so they would know if they need it or don't.
Right. So basically, Indie Artist Resource is an online e-commerce website that independent musicians, songwriters, etc., who are not quite ready to hire an attorney but still need simple agreements can download templates of the most commonly needed agreements by independent musicians, and they come with instructions, so it's a DIY solution. But I've drafted them all, so I know they're all good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So let's say somebody, I should get myself back in the frame here. So somebody who needs, we get asked this question a lot. Do you have a form or a simple agreement I can use for a, what do you call it when a singer comes by and the singer sings on your thing?
Work for hire.
A work for hire.
Yeah, we have that.
We get that question. I get that question all the time.
And I know that people need it all the time, so that's one of the ones that's on there. So there's songwriter splits, there's master ownership splits, there's work for hire, there's producer agreements, management agreements.
So all this stuff is important because especially like the work for hire stuff, I hear from people, I used a bass player on this, but it was years ago. And now I have no idea where this person is or if they're even still alive. You know what? They will be alive and they will find you.
Exactly.
The first time.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Wait till they come going, where's my share of the money?
Right. First time you're in a movie theater, they will be in the front row watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Not for nothing, I saw the new Jean-Claude Van Damme movie came out the other day.
I didn't know there is a new Jean-Claude
There
Van Damme
is,
movie.
and I've never been a fan, but this movie was actually pretty good. I got to go to a screening at Lionsgate the other night, and the interesting thing was Jean-Claude doesn't say a word in the entire movie.
Oh, wow.
Not one word. He plays a PTSD veteran in the middle of a gang neighborhood. And the movie was actually better than I thought it would be. But I walked up to the director afterwards and said, "You, sir, get an Oscar for directing Jean-Claude Van Damme, who barely hit anybody in the whole movie and didn't say a word." And the facial expressions were like, you could feel it, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
go JCVD. I think I
Yeah.
got those initials
Yeah.
right. Okay, so what we're going to do today is Bree is kicking me under the table. Hold up your little signs, Michael. Okay,
Which
click
sign
that.
is that?
I think it means school's out or something. I don't know. But anyway, if you see one of those on your page, click it. Definitely give us a thumbs
Right.
up. Yep. Yeah. Share. That one gets very glary.
There we
we
go.
go. Yeah. So like even just open up your entire address book and hit the share button and send it to everybody. And if you don't already subscribe to the channel, right about there is where the button will be. So click that button. All right. I did my stuff. So let's just jump right into the questions. I've got some stuff that Erin and I talked about prior to the big broadcast, so we're going to talk about those, and then we're going to jump right into answering the questions that you guys submitted. Please don't be offended if we don't answer your question, because in some cases we have similar questions that are answered by one. So whoever asked the question well or came first on the list, if there are other people that ask the same question, we'll say Bob Smith asks, when it could be that Timothy Reardon and Evangeline Lilly and all these other people ask the same question. Did you?
Questions were good, though.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were good. Even
really
Bria
good
said that
questions.
as well. That
Yeah.
better than what we normally get.
Yeah. Thanks for sending in good questions, guys.
Okay, so a question I've got that I hear from
Yes.
people a lot is really, really important is checking the publishing box on TuneCore, CD Baby, etc., and then submitting that music for possible publishing deals with music libraries. Now, the reason I'm so keenly aware of this is that when we play music on the show from Taxi members, I will get a copyright strike notice from YouTube, sometimes 5 minutes after the show is over, and almost every single time, almost like 95% of the time, it's either published by TuneCore or CD Baby,
Right.
both of which are fine companies. This is
Right.
we're
Yeah.
not judging the companies, we're judging whether or not you are making an informed decision when you check the box.
Right.
Because technically you can't submit that stuff for a library deal
Correct.
because you already have a publisher, right?
Right. So usually, people just check the box and then don't read what it says. And we actually went over this.
I want a publisher,
Right.
sure.
Sure, why not? But it depends what your goals are. And we talked about this the first time that you had me at the Road Rally when we did that
that's
whole
right.
session on libraries.
Right.
Because I don't have CD Babies, all their terms in my head.
Why not?
But, well, because I've read their agreement. But I do remember specifically in TuneCore's, it says, we are your exclusive publisher. Exclusive meaning the only one. And they have provisions for sync in there, saying they're the ones that can
Wow.
handle syncs. So if you've checked that box, you can't go give your music to a library and have them pitch it because it's, we have to give this is not legal advice disclaimer, even though it was in the email. I saw it in the email, thank you. But I have to give, before I get into this whole thing, I have to give this quick disclaimer that anything I say on the show is not legal advice. No attorney-client relationships created between me and anybody that's watching the show, unless you're already my client. Hi, clients that are watching. And what else? Seek an attorney in your state for legal advice, and if anything I say is an advertisement, it's general in nature, not directed towards any specific person.
Glad we got that
Okay,
out
we're
of the
done
way.
with that.
Yeah.
All right, so when you are signed to an exclusive publishing deal, whether it be TuneCore, CD Baby, whatever, you can't then go give your music to somebody else to pitch or do things with because those services are already with this company that is your publisher. So you do need to know what you're signing before you sign it.
I would guess 90%. I could be wrong, but the vast majority of people that put their music, that use a service like CD Baby or TuneCore to put their music up online and distribute it to several places where it can be downloaded. I would say that if they see something that says, would you like us to publish your music and get you some syncs? They're going to check that box.
Right.
And then they're going to forget they checked that box 5 minutes after they leave their computer.
Yes, they do. I get that question a lot, even in like the taxi classes that I do.
At the road rally,
and then I have to go, well, did you check the box? Are they your publisher? And it's like, I don't know. And it's like, that's really important, because if you did that, you're tied up with this company. And I believe the TuneCore term is 3 years.
So technically, if you forget that you checked that box, and then you do a deal with an exclusive, even a non-exclusive production music library,
technically you're breaching your TuneCore agreement.
And technically they could come after you and sue you for something. I don't know if they would go for damages or something. I mean right.
In reality, like, is it going to make that much? But I mean, hey, if you get like some huge sync or something, maybe they will. And they'll be like, hey.
Yeah, what if you get a TV commercial that pays $50K and they go, whoa, hold on a minute.
They'll probably go, part of that's for us.
Yeah, a big part of it. It's interesting. There are a lot of people who are agents that represent music for the advertising community. And I've often wondered about that, because I know people that have done that very thing, which is taken music that they signed. They've submitted music to the agents that was under a non-exclusive library. So that would be okay.
That would be okay, yeah.
But I believe that technically the agents, unless they've got a California talent agent license, probably really don't have. Why would an agent in the music industry not have to abide by the same agency laws and statutes that an actor's agent does?
Well, they would.
Yeah.
So, but music agents usually are not pitching for syncs. They're usually the ones booking tours.
Except for commercials.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of them, very reputable ones out there that are pitching for commercials, and it's often big dollar stuff. And
right, because they're going to the ad agencies directly.
And they don't have a license. Good to know. Anyway, you know what they say, everybody's probably breaking 100 laws at any moment in time, and they just don't know it. Okay, so what should they do if they've discovered that it was not a choice that they're happy with? If they've checked that box, TuneCore, CD Baby, there are others out there. Again, this is not an indictment of these companies. They're fine companies. They do what they say.
No, they all do fine. They're all fine. It's just a matter of, is that what you wanted to do in achieving your goals? Because if you're looking to pitch to a bunch of libraries, then you don't necessarily want to be tied up in a publishing deal with TuneCore or CD Baby. Or maybe you do, because maybe you don't want to be pitching to a bunch of libraries, but if you're a taxi member, you probably do.
Right. So how do they get out?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you're going to have to, well, at that case, like, that's when you would call me, and I need to look at the agreement and go, okay, what are the termination provisions? How can we get you out of this? I mean, that's pretty much step one. And then
what do they do if
they've got another, like, 2 years left or something
and they know that they've signed the same material to some exclusive libraries or non-exclusive? I guess non-exclusive matters too, because they've signed an exclusive deal with TuneCore, CD Baby.
Right.
So,
well, non-exclusive doesn't matter as much as far as the non-exclusive library is concerned. It still matters as far as TuneCore, CD Baby is concerned.
Right, because they make a case, hey, we have you exclusively.
Right, but if both are exclusive, then, you're going to have to strategically put a plan together for that one.
Ask for Harvey Weinstein as your cellmate, because that way you get the good leftovers from his extremely good prison food. Just saying, you might as well eat well if you're going to be in prison. Anyway, so wow, people are going to freak out when they hear this.
Right. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. I mean, we haven't dealt with that, but I mean, the music industry is rife with, people that tried to sell their song to multiple people or whatnot. So it's not like the first time that it's ever happened in the history of the music business.
And probably largely due to either ignorance, sloppiness, not so much by intent, or...
Well, I guess...
maybe by intent.
Maybe. Sometimes more ignorance. I don't know. I feel like people just... that's happened to some of my clients where they've purchased a catalog and then the person's like trying to sell it to somebody else again. But it ends up... You end up finding out because like people are making claims on registrations and stuff, and then it's like, no. What's
They're trying to
here?
sell whole catalogs that have already been sold?
Yeah, or like certain songs.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just got an email from an extremely credible friend of mine in the industry the other day, and he said, by the way, if you know anybody who has a catalog they'd like to sell, I've got an investment company of some sort that's looking to buy catalogs, and right now they're looking to buy catalogs that don't even necessarily have to have any significant income. Mm-hmm. It's like, who would want to buy a catalog without any income unless they're just like stuffing the ballot box later? He said at some point later they're going to sign stuff that's actually generating revenue. But they don't get to sell a catalog based on head count. It's average income per unit, right? I mean, typically.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would look at, per song or catalog overall, and in any given catalog, it's usually only a few songs that are the income generators.
Right.
And then, you're going to look at the last several years of income and see, what the trend is and make a determination of what it seems to be worth based on that, and there's a multiple involved. And
what is there a typical range of multiples? Meaning
right now they're crazy. Yeah, they're
crazy high.
It's a seller's market right
really?
Now. Yeah,
good to know.
They're all the. I mean, there was just an article today that like Cobalt just is getting this whole new round of funding that they think is like $100 million or something. So,
wow.
All these companies are getting VC money and they're just buying catalogs and like as much as they can, and they're overpaying for them because they have to spend this money that they've been given. Right. So it's that's what everybody pretty much wants right now is buying.
Do you remember MySpace? MySpace ended up getting sold to like 20th Century Fox or somebody in the Fox family.
Yeah, and then it just faded away.
They paid like $585 million in the end. They sold it to some company I've never heard of for $35 million. Mm-hmm. Talk about a write-off. Yeah. $550 million. That's half a billion dollar write-off. Yeah. Wow.
Well, even Facebook, I've been reading that as popular as Facebook still is, the younger generation, they're not using it as much. They're using other platforms more. So like Snapchat, Instagram, like all those kinds of things. So
yeah, our 18-year-old daughter described Facebook to me once as, ooh. It's like only old people like.
It's for old people.
Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like most old people are just like, how do I use this?
That is so true.
Yeah.
Okay. If you've not inadvertently, if for whatever reason you have signed a deal with TuneCore or CD Baby or any of the other entities out there that do similar stuff, and you've put that music in especially exclusive libraries, you, my friend, need to reach out to Erin and solve that problem because nobody looks good in an orange jumpsuit.
No.
Just saying. Okay, how do musicians make money from Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, etc.?
Right. So those all vary a little bit. And we're talking about, are we talking about the composition side or the master side? Because there's different royalty streams.
Let's talk about both, obviously.
Yeah. So if we're just talking, so for Apple Music, you're excluding iTunes, I'm assuming. We're not talking about downloads for the moment. We're just talking about streaming.
Does anybody download? But okay.
I do, but they're going to be going away pretty soon.
You're giving away your age then.
Yeah. I like to have my music there.
I know. I get it.
So on the streaming side for compositions, there is a streaming mechanical royalty and there is a performance. And then on the master side, depending on whether there's a label involved, there's either like a percentage of ad revenue, profits, etc., paid to the label and gets divided up, or there's
The label gets like
the label gets
80%.
like this much,
Right.
and then the artist gets this much.
Gee,
But,
how did that
yeah.
happen? So going back to the mechanical for a second, I guess it makes sense it's mechanical because you are affixing it to, well, not a physical entity.
No, so what happens is when there's a stream, there's a data transmission, and so
Right.
they're saying that the data transmission is akin to a reproduction.
Okay.
So that's why you end up with the streaming mechanical.
And is
but
it
the
paid at the same rate that a
No,
mechanical?
that was my next point. It's very different than the regular, like that 9.1 cents that every
So let me
knows
guess,
about
this
for
is
the
more
mechanical.
like 0.0009?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't even think it's a 9. So it's really,
So-
and it's not totally on a per stream basis either. So it's very complicated to figure them out.
I remember you and I have spoken about this, and then who was the guy that you referred to me who I absolutely fell in love with? He's really smart, really nice, very gregarious. His company is something.io.
Oh, exploration.
Yeah, and he explained it, but again, both these explanations went over my head because I'm not really the best student in the class, just saying. So
It was like when ringtones came out and everybody's like, what are we making on
Right.
that? Because it's this like complicated formula that somebody just sticks some kind of algorithm in the computer and it comes out. But
well, who determines what this formula is and if it's fair or
rate
not?
courts.
And the rate court.
That's why we have the NMPA lobbying for us. Yay, NMPA.
Well, but how well have they lobbied if the money still sucks?
Well, the money sucks now, but with the Music Modernization Act, it's supposed to get better. So,
When?
hopefully by next year.
Okay.
Maybe the year after, but
And so which side, because I do remember, what's our mutual friend's name from Exploration?
Erin, he's also an Erin. I don't even know if he's still with the company, to be honest
Really?
with you. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I haven't kept up with, I mostly talk to Renee, who's the other owner. So.
Okay, well, in any case, I know that musicians who are the artist actually, or the master owner gets paid much better, I understand, than the songwriter. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yes. So the master side royalties, it's because the labels were able to negotiate in a free market, and because of the consent decrees of the PROs and a lot of other factors, plus that a lot of the royalty rates on the publishing side are set by the Copyright Royalty Board, and that's another thing that the NMPA has worked on is hearings with the CRB, and so the royalty rate is set to raise by like 44% over the next 5 years or something. So we're not equal, but we're getting there.
Okay.
So it's definitely, we're going in the right direction.
So can you give let's say somebody writes a song called, I Love Deborah, and they're the singer on it, and they put it on a YouTube video. They wrote it, they perform it, they own the master, and it gets
So they get all the money.
10 million views.
Right.
Could you ballpark a guess? I mean, are they going to walk away with a check for $17.85 or
Probably.
$1,700?
I mean, I've gotten, because I look at a lot of my clients' statements, and so it's like there was something that was like 20,000 streams, and that was like $3 and change, like $3.27 or something like that. And then, but if you're getting in the millions of streams, you're making good money.
So my daughter,
Yeah.
and I brought this up before,
Yeah.
that song that she co-wrote is now up to 4 million plays on
Oh,
YouTube.
great.
So
That should be a few thousand.
yeah,
Yeah.
good to know, because I asked another music attorney. He said it's not even worth filling out the paperwork for.
For 4 million? No.
Yeah.
Do the YouTube ad rev.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can she collect it retroactively?
Depends on how long it's been. She might not be able to.
About a year and a half.
She might be able to still get some of it at least.
Okay.
Yeah, I had that with a client that I don't remember how many views they had, but I said, well, you're collecting your YouTube ad rev, right? And they're like, huh? And so I was like, okay. I walked them through how to go on YouTube and like go to that section and sign up. And they went, Erin, there's like $200 something here for us. And I was like, great. And then like after they looked at it, they're like, we're going to be making it an extra $200 something a month because you told us to do that. I'm like, my job is done. Thank you.
Yeah. Send them a big bill. Okay, making sense of how composers get paid when their music is used in streaming shows on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, etc. And you mentioned in our back and forth notes, this is really a PRO or a direct license thing, but we can touch on it.
Right. So Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, whatever, they say we have one of our shows, we want to use your music in the show. So there's going to be a sync license. So there's going to be an upfront fee for sync. And then after that, it's either going to be performance money from your PRO or a direct performance license, which is probably going to be part of that sync license, to which those of us in the music industry say do not take the option for direct performance and just go with your PRO, because for direct performance you're getting a flat fee, and that might not be proportional to what you would get if it's streamed tons and tons of times.
So if the show took off and became a massive hit and played for years and years all over the world, you might make many thousands of dollars, whereas if you take the direct license thing from Netflix
it's
or
a
Hulu,
buyout.
And it could be a couple hundred.
Well, it depends on what the show is, what they're licensing, who the leverage is, what publisher it's with, et cetera, but generally all of us in the publishing community, anytime that topic comes up, we're like, no.
Well, it sets a dangerous precedent because...
And that's what they want, because they don't want to have to pay ASCAP and BMI licenses.
And are they not mandated to pay those licenses?
Well, if they're getting direct from everybody, then they don't have to. But...
When does the scale tip? Because, look, most people...
as long as they have people that are not direct, then they have to keep paying the licenses. And that's sort of our thing. So they're paying the licenses anyway, so why would you do a direct deal?
Want to hear something? I don't think you and I have ever spoken about this, but we're always going out looking for new people to run listings with Taxi. And reaching out to independent filmmakers that are making films that are roughly between $250,000 and maybe up to $5 million. I started looking on filmmaker forums, etc., and it's amazing how all these indie filmmakers all want royalty-free music because they truly, honestly believe that if they use music that pays a performance royalty, that they're going to have to write a monthly or a quarterly check. They don't understand the concept of ASCAP and BMI, do these licenses, collect the money, and pay the creators. So there's this whole community of people out there that are woefully uninformed on the subject, and they could be getting better music if they only knew. So that's my project for 2019 is informing them.
Well, it matters what kind of music you use in your project. I mean, that could make or break it.
It really does matter, and they're terrified, absolutely terrified of having to pay a royalty, and they don't understand it does not come from their pocket.
I mean, it might, if there's, if we're talking, well, now nobody's doing like DVD distributions and stuff, but, in that case, you would maybe need a per unit royalty or something like that if it wasn't a royalty-free music, but...
You're right. Hardly anybody does it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you're just looking at the performance aspect, then...
Yeah. And they don't even understand. I believe that many of the indie filmmakers don't understand that certainly in the United States, when music plays in a theater that nobody pays it. So you can sit there and say to your husband or wife or whomever, that's my music up there, and that's about all you're going to get till it lands on TV. Okay, let's talk about the legacy space with terminations, legacy catalogues, heirs, estates, purchases, blah, blah, blah. I know that this doesn't apply to a lot of our members, but you know what? I was kind of surprised in that
we had some questions on that.
Several.
And I've had people at the road rallies, talk to me about it. I guess
if you're a musician, there's some chance your parents were musicians.
Potentially. Yeah.
We've got one taxi member, I guess I shouldn't mention by name, but he represents his dad's catalog, and I think has done really, really well with that. So let's take these questions that are more specific about that topic. Chris Matarazzo, how do you say that? Matarazzo? Yeah, a couple of Jewish folks trying to do our best with Italian, although we do really well with the menu in an Italian restaurant.
I can always order an Italian place.
How can I legally license the vintage tracks of my deceased dad? You mean for use?
I think so.
Your dad passed away. Sorry to hear that. Your dad created music. You obviously represent the catalog, but want to know legally. So take it away, Erin.
Sure. So, well, firstly, it's going to depend, what are we talking about? Is it a song? Is it the compositions, or is it the masters, or is it both?
Let's assume that it's,
we can assume it's both, but when we say tracks, that's not specific, because legally we distinguish between the composition and the master recording. And so let's just assume, for purposes of this question, that it's, his dad wrote the songs and recorded them and owns the masters. So in that case, we just, we need proof via either the estate plan or intestacy law if there was no, or court order if there was no will. So we just need to show that this person is actually the legal heir that has the rights to distribute this, that owns it now, because sometimes you get issues where multiple people can be claiming to be the heir or the owner.
It's another one of those situations like, Dad had a bunch of songs in a trunk, who cares, until one of those songs gets licensed for a movie. So, then your brothers and sisters come out of the woodwork.
Right, exactly. I'm entitled to this. So that, firstly, because even for ASCAP and BMI, if you inherit royalty rights, you have to show that you're the legal heir to be able to continue collecting those.
So they actually have somebody at ASCAP or BMI?
Oh, yeah, their legal department. I do this all the time with them, that, we have to provide proof that the heirs are the correct heirs, and we have to fill out the proper forms that the PRO requires. And so, I have a few of these happening right now. So,
wow.
So then, if Chris, if you're the legal heir, then, or anybody, if you're the legal heir, then you can go about, what I do with people is, because a lot of people that have inherited stuff, they come to me and they say, okay, I've inherited this catalog. It's really great. Now what do I do? Right. I have ideas of what I want to do with it, but what do I do? So I then go in and I assess everything as to what's there and what's registered and is it correct and is chain of title correct? And, so we can make sure, because you can't, if you don't know what you have, you can't do anything with it. Right? So you need to know what you have first.
And the people on the end user end aren't going to be ignorant enough, unknowledgeable enough, or sloppy enough to say, oh, you think you own it? Sure, we'll license it. Right. They want to know that you've got that locked down.
Right. So especially, some of them won't necessarily check to, but if you show that there's, maybe a question, it's questionable or something, but a lot of them, they will, because I've done that too, where I've represented people that are licensing music, and I have to deal with doing the licenses from the people that own the music, and a lot of times even they're going like, oh yeah, well, we can license that person's share, and I'm like, really? I need something in writing to say that, because otherwise somebody's gonna come knocking on my client's door going, why wasn't I paid my share? And then my client's gonna go, well, we paid it to so-and-so because they said they could collect for both of you and license for both of you. That actually happened to another client of mine where we own the composition and the master owner licensed on behalf of both of us. And I said, hold on a second. They do not have permission to license on our behalf. And then it was a film and they got all freaked out because the film was like just about to be released. And they're like, oh no, like you're going to pull the song out of the movie, which I didn't. But I said, you need to negotiate a license with us separately because they don't have, and they're like, well, they said they did. I'm like, well, they were wrong.
And when those situations happen, all of a sudden people have tremendously inflated opinions as to the value of something. Taxi once got sued by a member, and why he sued us, I don't know. He signed a publishing deal with an awesome company, very legit company through Taxi, and then he got a placement and got, like $25 or something for the placement.
Yeah.
It was, like in a reality show or something. It was nominal. And he was under the misguided belief that you would get $75,000 to license 30 seconds of music in a reality show.
If you're famous, maybe, like...
This guy was not famous.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not famous and you don't have, like, a big charting hit or whatever, you're not getting $75K to license 30 seconds of your song.
In a reality show.
Yeah, in a reality show.
Or something on the History Channel, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't the kind of situation that would pay that kind of money. So I think a
not
lot
at
of
all.
people have these... they've heard these numbers. Oh yeah, so and so got $250,000. But you're absolutely
but
right,
if
because they're famous.
Yeah, exactly. if you have a number one hit, or you're the Rolling Stones, or like the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin or whatever, they're doing a commercial. Like, did they get paid $1 million? Probably.
Yeah.
Are most people going to get that? No. So yeah, I mean that's why, to have an experienced advisor with these issues, whether it's a library or a publisher or an attorney, to kind of guide the expectations of, okay, this is a good fee or not for this type of use.
I get people that complain, people who don't know the norms of the film and TV industry, and they call Taxi and go, you guys forwarded me to a company that wants 100% of the publisher's share. Oh my gosh, I took a course in college that said never give up your publishing. I'm a fan of, if you think you're going to pitch that song to Beyonce, don't give up the publishing. If the song's been sitting, on your hard drive for 17 years and there's literally no chance it's ever going to be a hit for somebody,
right.
Give up the publisher's share if you know that the publisher is a reputable, solid publisher that gets placements for people, because you're going to write other songs, and having 100% of a song that's never going to generate a penny doesn't make sense.
Well, and plus there's a difference between ownership or royalties, because when we say publisher's share, that often refers to royalties.
Right.
Which usually you end up giving up ownership along with that, but you don't necessarily have to. It's going to depend on the deal. So you may or may not be giving up ownership, but you may be giving up 100% of publisher royalties, which basically is like half. So it's like 50 cents of every dollar that comes in.
So are there publishers... music libraries, I should probably use that term. Are there music libraries?
Because I don't consider libraries to be publishers, even though they want to be.
Well, technically they are, but they don't act like a traditional publisher.
Correct.
That has a stable full of writers, and
they're not doing co-writes, they're not getting you cuts, like they're just pitching for sync.
Right.
Which is the traditional role of a library. But now these libraries have just decided, well, it's so much more advantageous for us if we can actually own the copyrights.
What about, have you ever seen a deal where they own the copyright and they don't own the master? I would think that they all, really?
Yeah, well, so in the pitching world, people, and this was in one of the questions too, is that supervisors like a one-stop clearance, meaning they can clear the composition side and the master side in the same
phone call or
same
email.
phone call, email, all in one go, same license. But that's not always the case, especially if there's a label involved or for whatever reason. So sometimes the master owner and the publisher, the library, or whoever's licensing on the composition side are not necessarily the same person or the same company.
Right.
So, I mean, it happens, I'd say more in the indie world, one stop is more common because it's, you know, if it's a self-release artist or something, yeah, so it's easier. Or like some of my publisher clients, if the masters are not controlled by a label, then we will add those into the deal so that way we can do one-stop licensing. But again, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the case.
So do some indie artists do indie record label deals where they retain ownership of the master, but the label is just licensing the use of the master to put out that record?
Yeah, but in that situation, the label will still be the exclusive representative, so any licensing opportunities that come in will still have to go through the label.
Yeah.
But I have seen indie record deals where they are licensing the masters and the artist is not giving up the ownership.
That's a smart artist.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do that, right?
No.
And you've got to have something that gives you leverage.
Well, but some indie labels kind of want to have that more partnership feel in their deals. So some of them are not asking for ownership and they just kind of license it and do a 50-50 split on the income.
Do they have some sort of step deal that if, you know, they sell 100,000 units that they get ownership, or they've earned their way to ownership?
Yeah, that's one of those things that just totally depends on the deal, because like how we've talked about libraries before is that it'll say like, oh, if we get you a placement of sync fees at least $1,500, then we own the copyright, or
right.
You know, things like that, which, you know, my take on that is $1,500 enough, or, you know, whatever the number is that enough for you to give up your ownership of it? Because it's like you said, is this a song that maybe could be, you know, Beyonce's next hit, or is this a song that's been on your hard drive for 17 years and, you know, who cares?
And you have to be realistic about that, because the vast majority of what people have is not going to be a hit for Beyonce.
Right.
So even though it comes from your heart and your soul and you put a lot of effort into it, if it's been sitting there for a while and you haven't had the means to pitch it well, and maybe it's a style of music that is now passé, you might as well monetize it in some way. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm a pragmatic person.
Yeah.
This is a great question. Should I take this one? I wrote songs with some singers.
Did we actually finish answering Chris's, though? I don't know if we finished answering Chris's question.
How do you file a copyright for a song co-written with somebody who's deceased?
Right. So, I mean, there are fields that allow for information, that type of information.
You mean fields in the form?
In the copyright form. So, so that's not undue. I mean, it's something that can be done. I don't think this person's also asking about live recordings with the deceased participant with no known living relatives. I mean, nobody's probably going to come after you. And, you know,
Erin,
if there's
whoa.
I mean, I don't want to, I mean, look, I'm not advocating go do that, but if they have no known living relatives and they don't have a will, who's going to come?
Who gets to decide that?
Well, a court would decide that at the end of the day. Or
right.
you have to go through the chain of intestacy. There's a hierarchy.
In a trip to court, you know, would it be small claims court?
No, you're going to end up in probate court at that point.
So you're spending thousands of dollars before you ever walk through the door.
Probate court's not cheap, so
it's a fortune.
Right.
So you have to decide: am I willing to take this risk for possibly spending tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees to defend myself later?
I mean, it's for all of these. It's going to be a really case by case situation, and it's going to be what is the person's risk tolerance.
Can you set up something?
You can hold the funds in escrow.
That's what I was going to say. Like make an escrow for.
You can, yeah.
John Doe,
right? And then if
just
somebody comes, like I'm the heir to John Doe, you could be like, "Here, I have your money."
And you're in no trouble because you did the honorable thing. And then if you're like a week away from passing away, spend that money because John Doe's relatives will get you what you did. Live it up.
Michael said that.
Go on a really awesome vacation with John Doe's money. Yeah, right. Erin would never say that.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Michael would. Okay. I wrote some song with some singers I no longer have contact with.
Right.
And they
Story
moved.
of the music industry.
Right. Really.
I recorded with people. I wrote with people. We never talk anymore. I don't know where they are.
It was the 70s and we were all high at
Exactly.
the time. I'd like to release the songs. What forms I need to fill out for now and in the future if I lose contact with a writer?
Well, I mean, it's kind of retroactive because when you write a song with somebody, you should be doing a songwriter split agreement. But if, this was like in the 70s and you're not in touch with those people anymore, you can't really do a songwriter split agreement at this point. So it kind of becomes that risk tolerance thing again. Are you gotta, there's more facts than just like, hey, don't talk to this person. Like, can you find this person? Is it, like, are there any past agreements?
Can you make best effort and have that hold up in court?
Sometimes,
Like, run a classified ad in the last known town that they lived in?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is part of it. So there are things like that you can do if you've really, you have to do a good faith search. You do have to really try and find that person. But, if you show that you did that and you can't find the person, then that does hold some weight. So
you might still get sued, but the judge is going to look kindly upon you. In all likelihood, can't guarantee that because you made a good faith effort.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you do that and they don't say like that we told you to do that because we're not telling you to go do that.
This is interesting. Pierre Veniat.
Our French is worse than our Italian.
And I took French 4 years in a row.
See, and I learned Italian too.
French 101 4 years in a row. And I flunked 4 times. I co-wrote many songs with someone who's also the publisher. He passed away 2 years ago. I can't find any successors or heirs of any kind. Can I submit these songs to other publishers or libraries?
Right. That's an interesting
one.
Well, this happens also. And it's, it sort of becomes that thing like we really tried to find this person. We couldn't. So we're going to, choose to do this. And if somebody comes knocking, we'll deal with it later, But sometimes depending on, like, if registrations and everything were already with this other publisher, a society is going to want that publisher to disclaim those if you're now claiming them.
Talk about red tape.
Yeah, so you might actually get held up in the process because if there's nobody to say, like, yeah, they can go ahead. So you can try, but you might not get anywhere.
I would imagine that for the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, that if the publishing company hasn't had any activity and they may not even be defunct, but
but they might just freeze it.
Yeah. And they'll gladly hold the money and collect interest on it forever. Okay. This is an interesting question. A music library recording contract, what are the 3 biggest red flag sentences or phrases to look out for from your perspective, especially for those of us who may be signing our first ever contracts in the coming years?
Right. So I'd say it's more words and concepts than sentences or phrases. But, one is exclusive, which we already talked about a bit. So is that company going to be the only company that you can sign that music to or not? Perpetuity is another word. Perpetuity means forever. So if it says like you assign all rights to us in perpetuity, it's like, okay, that means you're assigning your rights away forever. Although potentially not if we're looking at termination rights, but that's a whole other topic.
And again, it depends. There's no hard and fast rule because it could be an instrumental that you could write 5 more of them this week, or if it's that song for Beyonce, then that holds a whole different perspective.
Yeah, and then it also depends how valuable it ends up being. If you sign it with someone in perpetuity and it still never generates any income or something, it's like, do you really want to go through the process of trying to get it back? But some people do because they feel like they can do better with it. So it's really an individual decision. Every case is different. So what else? Perpetuity, exclusivity. So I would look at the length of the term, the money situation. So is it in advance? What is is there an advance? Is that advance recoupable?
Which typically wouldn't happen for a music library.
Yeah, usually
but
not.
Regular publisher,
right.
Yes.
What is the royalty split? And then the other concept is ownership. So what ownership are you giving up in that cases? And you kind of like, sometimes they're tricky because like we said, there's these threshold things where it says like, you're not giving up ownership, but then if we get you a placement that has this much money in the fee, then we get the ownership. And then I've seen some really bad ones where they had income streams, like certain income streams funneling into other income streams to then trigger that threshold so that they would get ownership. And I was like, oh, this is so bad.
So they would try and roll in any income that comes from like
YouTube
so streams or Apple,
well, it wouldn't just be based on like the upfront sync fee. It's like, oh, but if these royalties roll in and we can then add it to that, and it was bad.
Which I kind of understand from the library's perspective.
Right.
The libraries
it's two competing interests.
And they're loath to do a lot of paper pushing, even though they have to.
Yeah.
But they want to sign something and know that they can keep pitching it, because very often somebody will put something in the library and it'll lay there like a lox. I just got an email from, might have been Chuck Henry or Dean Crepane, one of our bigger dollar earning members, saying they had something sat in a library for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden it took off, and it had like 2,043 placements in relatively
That's great.
short order.
I love that about music. Like I've had that with clients like that had songs from the 70s and stuff that did nothing. Like were on albums, or like they didn't earn anything, and then now it's like they got a big placement, and it's like they're generating money, and it so it's like the power of music. It just keeps on going. It's like
Christmas, 365 days a year.
It is.
Do you know our oldest member just passed away about 2 months ago? He was 95 years old. And this gentleman had recorded stuff back during World War II.
Wow.
Like big band stuff.
Cool.
And it sat there on a shelf for decades. And we hooked him up with a publisher that specializes in vintage music. And he started getting placements to the tunes of, I believe, tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I called him up like 5 years ago and said, Pete, I'm so happy for you, dude. To be your age and have that extra income, it's got to be great.
Yeah.
And he got a little profane. He used to be a sailor, but in a very sweet way. He said, listen, young man, I don't give a blip, about the income. It's all about the fact that this music is finally being heard by millions of people.
Yeah.
I was wiping tears from my eyes, because for every musician, that's all they really want.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they should be paid, but there's that validation.
Yeah. Well, some of them, they feel like, I used to be in the business and I'm not in the business anymore because, I'm older and my music's not doing anything and stuff. And then it's like you get this activity generated again, and it's like one of my clients, we tell him, we're like, you're back in the biz, and he loves it. He's so excited. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Robert Keats. Explain the following sentence from a text. This company this company offers an exclusive deal. You'll split all upfront sync fees 50-50. They'll get 100% of the publisher share. You'll get it. We talked about this, but can you synopsize that?
What is the question, though? It just says, please explain. Okay,
yeah,
so
he just wants to understand.
All right, so it's an exclusive deal. That's the only company. I'm, assuming this is a library deal. That's the only company that is allowed to pitch the music and collect the income, and any upfront sync fees. So that's the flat money fee paid upfront for the use of your music will be split 50-50 between the writer and the company. And then any royalties on the back end, like performance money, 100% of the publisher's share will go to the company, and 100% of the writer's share will go directly to the writer from... And the writer, when we're talking about performance money, the writer gets paid directly from their PRO, so ASCAP or BMI. Probably most people on Taxi are not CSAC members, because that's, I mean, maybe a few, but
it's a different kind of bar to be a CSAC
well,
member.
CSAC members invitation only, so a lot of people.
And they only invite you if you've got an income stream.
Well, they invite you if you're big, or they invite you if you like know someone. So like some of my clients are CSAC, but that's because of me, kind of. You know, I mean, they had to like their music, but you know.
We get asked this question all the time, and I have to be political in giving my answer. People come up to me all the time at the road rally, and I'm sure we've got a question in here about that. You know, do you recommend ASCAP,
Right.
BMI, or CSAC?
Right.
And my answer is they're all great at some things, and they all suck at other things, and
Right.
it kind of depends on the month. How do you feel?
Right. Well, so, you know, again, CSAC you have to be invited to. So most people that are just going, I need to sign up with a PRO, are not going to be signing up with CSAC. So it's really either ASCAP or BMI, and they're both really good. But it just, there's certain nuances between them that kind of may matter more depending on what a person's career is like. But
let's assume
at the end of the day, they both do a good job.
Let's assume, because so many of our members are now making money with film and TV placements. Somebody recently told me that 2 writers on something. One was ASCAP, one was BMI, and I won't tell you which one of the writers, but it was like 7 times the amount of income.
Yeah, but wait till the next statement.
From one PRO to the other. And that's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they just collected sooner and didn't hit this quarter statement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because
Is
usually
it pretty much a wash?
by the end of the day, you know, after, it might be like one statement's like one's a lot higher, but then maybe the next statement or the next 2 statements or whatever, the other one's higher. So at the end of the day, it will, you know, pretty much even out. If it doesn't, then there's a problem and you need to contact whoever you're affiliated with. So, yeah, but usually at the end of the day, they pretty much even out.
Okay, good to know. This one says, my questions are, if you have songs...
Oh, yeah, this was a more complicated one.
This one's very complicated. Let's tackle it in the shortest way we can, because we still have quite a few to go. My questions are, this is from David Horsley, if you have a song signed to an exclusive deal with a music publisher with a standard 100% goes to the publisher and 100% of the writer share goes to you, split sync fees. So, yeah, I'm guessing that means 50-50 on the sync fees. You release a video of the song on YouTube without the participation in any way or money from the publisher. Would you be required to split any of the income the video made with the publisher?
And they ask if you need the permission, if their permission to release a video.
Okay, so let's take them one at a time. Right. Would you be required to split the income if they own 100% of the publisher share, you own 100% of the writer share, and you throw a video, you know, you sitting on a stool in your bedroom playing the song on acoustic guitar?
Right. So partly it's going to depend a little bit on the language of the contract, but just taking it in a general sense here, if they own it, you're going to need their permission to even put the video up, probably. And then, yeah, I mean, you'll probably have to give them part of the income unless there's some sort of language saying that it's like only syncs that they've pitched, or, you know, or the writer is allowed to kind of do this on their own. So yeah, probably you're going to have to split it with them, and they'll claim the video, and they'll claim the video on YouTube, and and collect it howsies.
And would you need their permission? Yes.
Yeah.
Can this kind of thing be negotiated?
Yes.
The answer is yes, but with any negotiation, you need to have a leg to stand on. You can't just say, well, I demand this, and they'll say, okay, fine, we're walking away from it, and you go, oh, geez, now I don't have a publisher.
Yeah.
But if you have relationships with other publishers, then you can play that card.
Right. Well, again, I feel like this is more libraries than like traditional publishers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. So few people sign. I mean, traditional publishing deals aren't anything like they used to be years ago, but now it's somebody who comes up with a hi-hat part is a co-writer on a song.
Yeah, a lot of time. But that's often, that's become more custom and practice amongst songwriters. But, publishers still do what they're supposed to do. They do licenses, they collect income, they do co-writes, they do, they get cuts, like they
They
collect
act more
all
like
the
A&R
income.
people used to. They also like to throw people in the pot and stir it up. And, publishers used to introduce co-writers
Yeah,
to
they
each
still
other
do
to
that.
go, right.
Yeah.
But now it's also they introduce artists and writers.
Right, because that's part of getting cuts
Yeah.
on the albums.
Right.
So, yeah.
Practically the only way to get a cut
Right,
on an
yeah.
album anymore. Let's see. Would the same thing apply to radio? So
Not necessarily, because you're tying in. It's not so radio is audio only. There's no sync involved. So again, it's going to depend on, does this deal apply only to syncs and the royalties that stem from them, or does this deal apply to all royalties? And you don't necessarily need the publisher's permission to make an audio recording, because there's a compulsory aspect to that. But what was the last thing? Yeah, because then he's saying, is it possible that a deal can be negotiated whereby the publisher only receives money when the song earns money due to TV syncs and film? And sometimes that's the case. So it really depends on how this deal is structured.
as the writer, I hire radio promoters, etc., and no participation from the publisher in any way.
Yeah, but if that deal covers all publishing royalties, whether they're from sync
Right.
or not, it doesn't matter that they didn't participate in hiring a radio promoter. They're still going to get their cut of the royalties from the performances of the songs.
The
on
only
the
thing
radio.
they're going to give you is a hearty thank you.
Yeah, they'll be like, great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
More money for us.
Yep. Okay, moving on. Michael Goldstein asked via Facebook, I had a demo professionally produced with vocals. I paid for the demo but did not complete a work for hire agreement. If the demo is picked up by a publisher or music library, are the vocalist and producer entitled to royalties? And if so, how much? Thank you.
The answer is it depends. But basically, okay, so first of all, people think, I'm glad that Michael made this distinction. I paid for the demo but did not complete a work for hire agreement. A lot of people think I paid for it, therefore I own it, and that's not the case. So even if you paid for it, you still need to complete a work for hire agreement, so get that done. And then if the demo is picked up by a publisher or library, are they entitled to royalties? It depends, because first of all, it's going to depend if these people are union or non-union, because there's different rules, because there's very specific rules that apply to union recordings, or if they're SAG-AFTRA or anything like that. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, it kind of depends if they want to make a claim to come after it. So with no agreement in place, it's like a, you versus them argument, and there's no really like royalty for that, but they could very well make a claim and saying, there was no work for hire and I'm on that recording and I am supposed to get something. So it could be a problem. Do your work for hire agreements.
People are afraid to. They are literally
They
afraid.
think it's going to kill the vibe.
Yeah. And I guess you could say save the paperwork for the end of the session, but I think that there's always the chance somebody goes, yeah,
too bad.
No,
yeah, exactly. And then you've, potentially paid them, and then you're like, great, now I don't know that I can use this. But look, this is a business, and it's just, like for songwriter split sheets, like nobody wants to bring that up either in a co-writing session, but it's as much for the other songwriter's protection as it is for the songwriter that's saying, let's do a songwriter split agreement.
Is there a de facto, if nobody signs a split agreement and something actually made it to a judge without hitting a settlement first, is there a de facto, like there are two writers, therefore it's 50-50,
A
or
lot
three
of
writers,
times,
it's
yeah.
a third and a third and a third?
I can't say that a judge would decide that way, but in practice in the industry, a lot of times that it does get divided that way, because if if there's no split, sometimes people would just be like, okay, 2 writers 50-50, 3 writers 33.
In Nashville,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody ever signs a split agreement because there's a long-standing agreement that if you're in the room, you get paid. And the theory goes, if you were the person, all you did that day was make the coffee, and that person, she came up with the melody, he came up with the lyric, and all you did was make the coffee, they're okay with you getting a third, because the next time you may be the person that comes up with the big hook that sells a zillion copies, and they were making the coffee.
Nashville's a little friendlier, but they use union a lot more in Nashville. Like, I had a client that decided to record their album in Nashville, and I was like, I don't think you know what you're getting yourself into right now. And they're like, no, it'll be fine. And then
what about all the studios that do stuff off rate card?
I mean, they might, but I mean, I just had my client like constantly calling me like, why do I have to keep paying more? I just paid them. Why? I'm getting another invoice. What is all this? And I'm like, these are union fees. You wanted to record union. So, I mean, nothing wrong with that. You just have to know that there are rules that you have to follow and specific payments that have to be made for healthcare and pension and new uses and sinks and all that kind of stuff if you want to do that. So,
here's one by Linda Starr. All my songs written years ago. I have no way of getting work for hire agreements. Some died, some disappeared. I played piano. My husband and I used our own studio. Well, here's the interesting part of this. One song was co-written, but he, meaning the other writer, presumably had Alzheimer's for many years now, and is in his mid-80s, remarried with no children ever. What if
got a wife?
Yeah, he's got a wife, and he may
Mm-hmm.
not remember these sessions at all. So she's got power of attorney, presumably over this because she's his wife.
Well, I mean, we haven't seen their estate plan or anything, but if he dies, she's his heir.
So the final question Linda asks is, what if I get some calls from the handful of forwards that I've had through Taxi?
I mean, it kind of goes back to what we talked about before. I mean, one option is to actually try and reach out and get it handled with the paperwork for the people that you can find or that, are alive or whatnot. I mean, another option is to hold the money in escrow for when they do knock on your door. And say, well, we've held the money for you. I mean, it doesn't fix the problem of, they didn't sign off on it. And you might actually, if licensees know that there are other co-writers here, they might not license it because they want their permission as well. So it's, it's going to be a case-by-case thing.
I would think that if you reach out to the wife of this gentleman and explain the situation, she would be kind of silly not to sign the agreement, or, well, I don't know if she's the person to sign the agreement because it depends on their legal status.
But at least you'd have some sort of contact and maybe have more information as to what's going on.
What happens if the wife of the gentleman who has Alzheimer's gets him to sign it? She'll make a claim. She could make a claim later. He didn't know what he was doing because he was diminished mental capacity.
She could.
It's complicated.
But then is it, but I think in this, this says one song was co-written. So is that just going to be a songwriter split, or is that going to be a work for hire? Because that's, them signing a songwriter split is not necessarily as detrimental as signing a work for hire, from...
Yeah, I think it's going to be a split.
So we need, these are consultation questions because they really involve more information.
All right, Jared Cavello asks, what's a good deal to sign as an artist for contracts? Example, artist, 83% to the label, 17% for album sales. All these questions, even I know, and I'm not an attorney, and this is definitely not legal advice, but even I know that there are many factors that go into making that decision.
Totally. So what is a good deal? There's so many factors that go into that decision. But I mean, if you're just looking at royalties, 17% for album sales for a new artist with no traction. It's not a bad royalty, right? But there's so many other factors that go into that you can't just look at that one thing and go, okay, that's a good deal.
Right. What if you give up 50% of your touring income and you're an actual working group that's out there making money on the road?
Well, it's like some of the label deals, it's like, because streaming is so big now, streaming is factored in, and they will literally say that there are like hundreds of millions of streams. Like, you need hundreds of millions of streams to count, for like royalty bumps and stuff. And it's like, there's no way anybody is ever going to achieve the numbers that they're like throwing out there. I mean, literally, I had one negotiation and they threw this number at me. And I was like, you're kidding me, right? Like, that you're actually like saying that is, like a legit thing that you think I'm going to agree to on behalf of my client, when like probably no human will ever achieve that number of streams. Like, really? So then we negotiated it to like a reasonable number. But
was the lawyer on the other end of the phone like chuckling? Like,
no, this was actually over email. But I was really like, I read this and I was like, are you kidding me right now? This is like...
They had to know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like when you throw something like that out there, you have to know that it's ridiculous, and as lawyers, we're not supposed to, like, do that. So
it's a waste of everybody's
time.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, so we negotiated it down to something that was reasonable, but still, I was like, why would you even start there when you know that that's just ridiculous?
More billable hours is the only legit
reason. Well,
they
were in-house, so there was no billable hours for them. Yeah, because that was a label lawyer. So.
Okay, Nassar Hughes asks via Facebook, I'm looking to become a ghostwriter for hip-hop and R&B. What are some good negotiation deals? Should I offer? Yeah. I think you mean...
He wants to know what types of deals should he offer to the people that he wants to write for.
Okay, such as writer credit with royalty reimbursement, or sell a whole song or a chorus for a flat rate. Also, does ASCAP cover publishing rights for songs? Okay, so that's a whole separate...
That's a separate question, but I want to address it because it's really important, because it's a common misconception. So as far as what kind of deals to offer, that's going to totally depend on what you're doing, your business structure, how many songs you're churning out, who you're writing for, all kinds of different factors. When it comes to beats, like beats are really big now. And so a lot of times that's either a non-exclusive license to use the beat, an exclusive license to use a beat, or a buyout of the beat where it's actually a sale. So it really, I mean, again, this is another one of those questions where I would sit down with somebody and go, okay, what is your business structure? What are you looking to do? Tell me exactly what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and then we'd structure it in a way that is going to make sense financially and business-wise for
Why
that
would you
person.
Want to be a ghostwriter? I don't understand.
Because it's actually, like for common? Beats and stuff.
Well, that I understand.
But a lot of times they get credit for the beats, too.
Right.
So
it's like, why would you want to be a ghost? Anything, because you would, to get other clients, you want your name associated with it.
Right. I don't know.
I've run into people that have leased beats, which in my non-legal opinion, leasing beats is a fool's errand, because it's one thing if you're going to make a lovely little piece of music and put it on a video of your kid graduating from high school on YouTube.
But that's going to expire. Yeah.
Especially if you're using these beats and stuff that you're going to be pitching to music libraries or getting placements in TV shows, and they're leased. Yeah, the term ends, and you're so screwed.
Right, and you're like, oh, can't use this anymore. So.
But they will continue to use it, and they'll go, oh, I didn't realize it had a shelf life.
Right, yeah. It's a problem. Don't lease beats. But, so the second separate question is also, does ASCAP cover publishing rights for songs? So ASCAP and BMI are performance rights organizations. Their job is to collect and distribute royalties when compositions are publicly performed. That is one royalty stream of publishing. ASCAP and BMI are not music publishers. They don't do all the functions of music publishers. They have their job of collecting and distributing performance royalties. They're very good at that. and that's all they do. So they are not your publisher. Please don't think that they are your publisher. But people ask that all the time. Like, oh yeah, I signed up with ASCAP or BMI. They're my publisher. And I'm like, no, they're not. If you think ASCAP and BMI is your publisher, you are missing out on several other different royalty streams. So yeah, it's a problem.
There's so much information out there. First of all, the internet. Endless pool of information.
Right. Well, even on my website. Go to my website. TheMusicIndustryLawyer.com. I have tons of articles on there.
TheMusicIndustryLawyer.com.
Yeah.
I mean, folks, the information's out there. You can't plead ignorance anymore. Yes, it used to be that you had to go buy this Business of Music, which was a very thick and very hard book to get through. The Brayback Brothers just came out with a new edition of their book.
Always. We love the Brayback Brothers.
Those guys, oh crap, I owe Jeff a phone call from Thursday.
That's
Oops.
Okay.
That just reminded me. I looked at it on...
Well, Jeff knows I'm on the show today. So.
Damn, I looked at my phone
Jeff will have Michael call you.
I'm so sorry, Jeff. I looked at my phone yesterday and went, whoa, there's another Jeff called me. Oh, that was Thursday.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah.
Anyway, those guys literally don't miss anything.
Yeah, no, they're great.
What's better than one lawyer? Well, two lawyers. Especially when they're twins.
Yeah. No, they're great.
Okay. So moving on, Weather Eye asks via Facebook about collaboration. I like that. We get a little header there.
Yes.
When collaborating with other writers, performers, and producers, how can I still state that I own the sync license and the master?
There's a little... Okay, so you don't own a sync license. I think what they are saying is that they have the right to license for sync on behalf of whoever the collaborators are, and that they also own the master, and that's going to be something via contract that is written in the contract that's negotiated. And then they say, is that changed if I give a percentage to of songwriting to a collaborator? And yes, that is going to be changed unless you also have an agreement to which you can still pitch on their behalf, even though they maybe own a percentage of it. Because otherwise, if you have people owning different percentages, then they're allowed to pitch on their own behalf, or, you know, collect money on their own behalf, unless there's a an agreement saying that this particular person is allowed to pitch on behalf of everyone, and they have the responsibility to account to everyone.
So if you and I co-write something, but I had the idea for the song, I had the chorus worked out, I'm the main writer, and because of that, you and I cut a 60-40 deal. You're a 40% writer on this song. Do I instantly have the ability to pitch the stuff because I'm the larger shareholder, if you will?
No, we each have the ability to pitch our own share. And then if somebody wants to license it, they will have to come to both of us for permission.
So that's when problems arise, when somebody else decides to hold up the whole shebang because they figure I'm in position of leverage.
And it's always like the one that has like 5% or something, and they're like, hold on, can we really, do we get more money for this? Or I don't understand this license, or they don't get back in time, or whatever. So in situations like that, if you don't trust who you're working with, then maybe you have an agreement. So like in the situation where we write a song together,
which will never happen.
Yeah, which is not going to happen. But if we have an agreement that one of us can be in charge of that function, like, so let's say it's me, then I would pitch it and then have something in writing to show that I have permission to grant a license on your behalf, and then whoever it is would pay me, and then I would pay you your 60%.
Can I rescind that right at some point if I choose to?
Yeah. I mean, it's like an admin deal.
Okay.
It depends on the contract also, but usually there's...
Let's talk about admin deals.
Okay.
I know that's on our sheet somewhere to talk about, and a lot of people don't understand with all the, like BMG Rights and Cobalt, many companies out there providing services for musicians, and one of the services that they provide in most cases for companies like that is an admin deal. Can you tell these folks what an admin deal is?
So an admin deal is a type of publishing deal where you're not giving up your copyright ownership, but the publisher is still providing all the the same functions of a publisher, but it's at usually a smaller percentage than if you were to sign a songwriter deal or a co-publishing agreement. So usually, well, if you're a Cobalt, it's probably like a 5% deal, but, ranging up to maybe 25%. So instead of taking 50% or, something like that, or 75-25, they're taking a smaller percentage because they don't own anything, but they're still performing these functions for you.
And the functions, will the set of functions they perform be uniform and the same throughout all these deals, or is it a la carte?
Well, when they own something, they have a little bit bigger incentives sometimes, right? So they're, putting if it's active writers, they're putting them in co-writes and their cuts and pitching and stuff. But they're still, for admin, they're still going to be pitching. They're still going to be issuing licenses. They're still going to be collecting. So, maybe they're not pushing it as heavily, but it depends on who it is and what company you're with and all that kind of stuff.
What if it's a small music library owned by one person, and that person's expertise is making relationships and pitching music, and they don't want to do any of the paper pushing or money chasing? Could they go cut a deal for admin with BMG,
they have back end,
and so therefore the Cobalt or the BMG entity would have no responsibility for doing anything regarding plugging the music in any way.
No, they just basically be, collecting the income and doing the paper pushing that is the back office function of the other person that you're signing the deal with that is making the relationships and pitching and all that.
So there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of income for them unless the library, if in aggregate there were enough things, because a lot of it could be instrumental pieces getting used in reality TV, where it's all going to be back end, and it's a penny business that in aggregate makes a lot of money.
Right.
So it's interesting. I'm surprised that more libraries. That's the complaint I hear from virtually every library owner I know is, I hate doing the paperwork. And
that's admin. Yeah. Welcome to admin. It's getting more and more complicated. I have calls like this every day about admin information being incorrect. And then we have to fix it.
And they've got to sit there and tag every single song and put it in all the different formats that different entities like to receive it in. Ugh, a lot of work.
Yeah.
Anybody who ever asks the question, why does the library get half the money? They earn it, trust me.
They do work.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Thanks to Jared for putting my URL in the chat window. Jared works in my office.
Good job, Jared.
Hey, Jared, thanks.
Do you want to say it verbally one more time for people that are watching?
themusicindustry.lawyer.com. And then if you missed the beginning, we talked about Indie Artist Resource, where you can get contract templates if you're not quite ready to hire, me in my practice or whatnot. So that's indieartistresource.com.
Both are in the description.
Both are in the description
below
the video.
Okay, Jeff Herstick asks, one of my artists covered an old song. When you say one of your artists, I'm guessing that you're a label? The track was produced extremely well, and I think I can get a sync license for it. However, I cannot find the song publisher, Ridgetop Music from Great Britain, anywhere. I think that they were a British publishing company that may have gone out of business. Therefore, there is nobody I can contact to get the song cleared for licensing. Is there some solution? We've spoken about that before.
Right. Well, part of it is, just because you can't find Ridgetop, it's possible. I mean, they may have just gone out of business and have, been faded into the ether, but they may have been purchased, or the rights may have been acquired by another company. So it's really something like this. Like if Jeff called me up and said, how do I do this? For me, that would be more about looking other places to try and track down like the chain of title and to see, is there other information that we can use to see who might actually own this? And it still might end up being a dead end. I don't know.
And you have to look at...
But it's going to be more based on the song than the fact that it was Ridgetop.
And the fact that the track was produced extremely well, honestly, in my humble opinion, doesn't mean that it's more prone to get a sync than something that's less well produced. It's more about, is it something that's useful in a scene? Does it convey a mood? I mean, it could have, specific things about times, dates, places, names, products, profanity in the lyric that could make it could be the best produced song in the world. George Martin could have produced it and it would suck. So look at it from an end user's perspective, not the production value. Also, I think he might be a manager, because later on he talks about getting in touch with the label. Bear Family Records now releases. They told me they do not know the publisher, where I can find them. They said they get mechanical licenses from recordings from a European equivalent of Harry Fox. I think the original recording was never released at the time it was recorded. So, everything that Erin said earlier about, best efforts, you got to, and then you as a business person being the manager, assuming typical 20% management fee, you have to look and go, okay, how much money will the artist make? How much money will I make versus the time you'll spend in getting this all squared away so that it could be pitched? It may not be worth it. You could spend 50 hours on this to get a $1,500 sync.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to depend on what this song is. And, maybe it's recoverable and maybe it's not. And is it worth it? I don't know.
Jerry Folkman asks, regarding putting one's music online and collecting the royalties, is there a simple checklist for self-contained individuals or bands who write and record only their own originals that outlines all the steps for putting music online so that most, if not all, appropriate royalties are monetized? For example, I believe here are some of the steps. These are some of the steps. You're going to need to use a digital distribution service like CD Baby to get your music into popular streaming and download platforms. Number 2, you've got to register with ASCAP or BMI for songwriter and music publisher royalties.
Performance royalties only there.
Yes. It's amazing to me that people don't understand that.
You're just, again, it's one royalty stream. There's multiple royalty streams when it comes to music. So,
Number 3,
register with sound. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Register with Sound Exchange for mechanical royalties from certain streams.
No. Okay. Sound Exchange, yes, but Sound Exchange does not collect and distribute mechanical royalties. Sound Exchange collects and distributes digital performance royalties for the master. So Sound Exchange is like the master side equivalent of what ASCAP and BMI is to the composition, except on the master side, the performance royalties are only for digital, so like streaming services and satellite like Sirius XM. So if you want to register with a service to collect and distribute your mechanical royalties, which is a composition royalty, that is the Harry Fox agency.
Really what this person's asking for is there one place I can go? Is there
There's
a book
not one
or
place.
a website that explains?
Well, I talk about this when I do my taxi classes, but
if you can
come
take
to the road rally, take my class.
Absolutely. But it is. It used to be everybody knew you wanted a record deal and a publishing deal, and you needed a PRO. It's way more complicated than that.
But
now.
It is. But if you got a publishing deal, like your publisher's going to be registering for Harry Fox, for you, and then collecting it and then paying you your writer's share. So you didn't need to be a direct member of Harry Fox at that point. But now there's so many people that are self-published.
Same thing is true for music library deals. Most of our members, I would venture to say, and I am not personally recommending this, it's just an observation that I've made, which is most of our members who are doing instrumental cues don't even bother registering them with a PRO because, number one, they see them as something else they could create 5 more just like it this week. So it's not that precious or important.
Right, but if you're on like a network show and that's like in reruns and it's a little cue that's on a cue sheet and it keeps airing, that's a lot of money you're missing out on.
But they know the library will register it. So they don't...
but there's still a writer's share.
So that's the question.
You still have to be a member, even if you're not physically registering every single cue yourself. If the library's registering it, you still need to be a writer member so you can get the writer's share. Otherwise, you're missing half the income.
Right. You need to be a member of a PRO, and they need to know, especially they need to know your bank account number so the money can make it. That's the most important thing by far. But are they correct in assuming that the library, during the process of, this cue gets used on an episode of the Kardashians, let's say, and the cue sheet is going to show that, and the cue sheet's going to get turned into
this is part of the library's job.
Right.
However, not all companies do the job at the level that they should. And I'm not, I'm not going to name names or whatnot, but
come on.
No, I'm not. But, and this happens even at the level of major publishers. Mm-hmm. Some are better than others at doing the admin and registering what needs to be registered. And as a writer, you need to understand what's happening and make sure that it's being done correctly, because if your library or your publisher or whoever is registering things wrong, you're not getting paid. Like, they're not getting paid, but you're not going to get paid because of their mistake. So to then not keep an eye on that, you're sort of just letting them, cheat you out of money.
And they may not care because you're one of 10,000 people. To you, that $387 is important.
Yeah.
To them, it's like, we know there's a certain amount of stuff we're going to miss, and this is just one of them.
Yeah. And I see in the chat a lot of people are mentioning Songtrust, and Songtrust is a good company as well, and I do business with them. So that's another option for people.
Tell them what Songtrust does.
So Songtrust does publishing administration, basically, but it's like an online thing that you can sign. Like, instead of clicking the box on TuneCore and CD Baby, you can go to Songtrust, and they're your admin. It's like a 1-year deal, so you're not stuck in it forever. But keep in mind, it's still, you still have that issue as, if you're pitching to libraries and stuff, Songtrust is still your admin, so you need to, I don't exactly remember what their policy is, but I do know that license requests go through them, so you're going to have to see whether that actually works for what you want to do. So for UK, somebody's asking about UK writers. So if it's involving US, then yes. But if it's a UK writer writing in the UK with UK companies, then you're going to want to get a solicitor in the UK that focuses on music
Say that
industry.
Again. More slowly.
Oh, sorry. So, okay. So somebody is asking if I can help UK writers. And the thing is that, so I'm licensed in California. I practice within California for state, and then copyright is United States federal law. But in the UK, there are different laws. It's Europe. So there's, copyright works differently there.
And potentially could get messed up with Brexit.
Yeah, well,
you got the UK
that's
and
a whole other
yeah.
thing. Yeah. So if it's a UK writer that is doing business here in the US and specifically in California, then yes. But, as far as royalty collection and different things like that works differently over there. Their societies work a little bit different. So if you're a UK writer only doing business in the UK or within the EU, you probably want to be with a UK solicitor that specializes in music. So.
And how does somebody know if they're hiring a good music attorney or a good solicitor?
Yeah.
How do you know?
That's a great question. Well, see, okay, so again, I have a series of articles on my website, how to hire the right attorney for you. But the thing is that you don't know their work product until you actually work with them. Mm-hmm. So in that case, if you know somebody that's worked with them, then that's helpful. But if you don't, you're going to kind of have to try and gauge that from your conversation. So I've had a lot of people that come to me and they're like, oh yeah, I was with another lawyer, but I never felt comfortable asking that person questions or, they were just sort of like, oh, I'll handle it. Don't worry about it kind of thing. And didn't explain things to them. And that's not the way I do things, because at the end of the day, it's your business. So you need to know what's going on. Even if you say, Erin, just go handle it for me, I'm always happy to answer questions or probably tell you more than maybe you even want to know because, I never just go, oh, I'll handle it unless it's really something that, they're just like, I don't know, Erin, do it, and then I can say like, I'll fix it, don't worry. But, but I also know that I'm going to be handling it correctly for them. And I've had things that have come to me and I've had to call the client and say, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but I'm going to have to redo this because that person did it wrong. And just because someone says that they're an entertainment lawyer or a music lawyer, they might not know. I mean, we talked about this with libraries. Not every music attorney knows libraries.
Most don't. The vast majority do not. They go, oh yeah, I've done music licensing.
Right.
I represented somebody who was a Sony writer.
Right.
Well, that's a whole different ball game from independent music libraries pitching to reality shows.
Yeah, and like I do a lot of work with like copyright recapture and termination. Not all attorneys do that. Like some music lawyers are just like do major label record deals all day long and producer deals. I was on the phone.
Do those even happen anymore?
They do, but I was on the phone with another lawyer like a week or two ago, and we were doing a co-publishing agreement between because there was like it was a song split, but it was with an existing song. So it was basically, here's how we're sharing the song, and we both have authority on our own to handle our share and blah blah blah. And so I was doing the registrations on behalf of everybody, and so I said, okay, this is how I'm going to register it with BMI. Is that fine? Is that the right account? Blah blah blah. And the guy just said, I have no idea how to do BMI registrations. And I said, oh, okay. And so we started talking about publishing, and he's like, yeah. And he's a music lawyer, and he's like, I don't really know publishing. He just admitted it to me.
How can you be a music lawyer and not know publishing?
Right. I mean,
that's like being a brain surgeon. You don't know about the veins in the brain.
I mean, I think they probably have him on like record deals and producer deals and that kind of stuff, and he's not dealing with like the nitty gritty of publishing. And I happen to really know and understand publishing and admin and that kind of stuff. So, I didn't want him to feel bad. So I was like, oh, well, my practice, I do a lot of publishing, nice. But, I didn't want him to I think he already felt embarrassed enough on his own. But not everybody does. Like, you need to ask questions about the experience and, and.
Man, oh man. If you have a relative or a friend who is a real estate attorney.
Yeah, please don't.
And they love music, and they took a couple of
lawyer.
Took a couple of music law courses in college. And they go, no problem, I can handle this for you. Biggest mistake ever. They may be well intentioned. You're saving a little money. It's only going to be bad.
It's going to be bad because the music industry has its own nuances. It's its own little world, and even within entertainment, between film, music, television, book publishing, they're all their own little areas. And so it's like film lawyers that I know, when there's a music issue, they call me. When I have film stuff that, somebody wants done, I call one of my colleagues. Like, we don't, we don't really, I mean, some people are like general entertainment lawyers, but for somebody like me that just focuses on music, I mean, can I do a film deal? Yeah. But that's, there's a custom and practice, there's nuances, there's ways things are done that you only know if that's what you're doing every day. And that's what I do for music.
And the rules have changed so much and continue to change.
Continuing. And they're going to be changing more within the next couple of years with our new laws.
So, yeah, if you're going to use somebody that 20 years ago, while they were getting their, law license to cover real estate deals, but they took a couple of music law courses in college because they just love music, please don't hire them.
Yeah.
I've actually had phone calls with attorneys that are that person. They're not bad people. They're not doing anything underhanded.
They just don't know what they're doing.
Right. And in a private conversation with me, they will admit that.
Yeah.
But they're embarrassed to admit that to their friend
Right.
or relative who's reached out to them.
Of course not. No, they don't want to admit to you that they don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's actually doing them a favor if they say, you know what, this really isn't my area. You need to find somebody that, that really knows this. So, and I do that all the time when people come to me with non-music stuff.
Jammin' Jay says, Erin, I wish there were more like you.
Thanks, Jay.
And that's why I have her on the show. And that's why we love her, as I said in the email, because our members love her. All right. We are 8 minutes over, 9 minutes over our allotted time.
Okay.
This actually,
that just flew by.
Yeah, it really did. So your web addresses, again, are in the description, but go ahead and say them verbally for people that don't like to click.
So for me and my practice, you're going to go to themusicindustrylawyer.com. And if you are interested in, if you're not ready to hire me, but you need templates for contracts and stuff, then you go to indieartistresource.com.
That you can. And she will be at the Road Rally, even though I haven't even invited her yet. I can guarantee you that she will be at this year's Road Rally.
Okay, I guess I'll be at the Road Rally.
You will.
Thank you.
There's some people that we just love having back every year.
Happy to come.
You're one of those.
Thank you.
With that, I bid you adieu. I have no idea what I'm doing. Do you remember what next week's show is? I know I've got somebody booked.
Oh, yeah. You're listening to a member's music.
Is that the Stephen Kaxmart thing is next week? Really? Okay. So next week, you folks are going to play A&R person. We're going to listen to somebody's music that was a taxi member who was not forwarded several times, and he disagrees with the screeners. And I said, you know what? Let's take this to the court of public opinion. And he's a nice enough person. He said, you know what? Let's do that. So you guys get to judge. Was the taxi screener right or wrong? All right. That's that. Thank you, guys. Erin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Man, it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye, you guys.